I'm going to make this one a little less about motorcycles and a little bit more about life, especially guys that are in or around my age-ish, my generation. I am the very first year, 1965, of Gen X. Grew up on a skateboard, grew up on a motorcycle, grew up on a bicycle, and had it made. And now, and I don't know if anyone else has, and really thought about this. When I look back at my childhood, which wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't bad, in comparison to what I see kids growing up with now, my life as a child with what I had access to at that time was phenomenal. There were no video games until much later, and it was just Atari or something like that, and you had to go to it just wasn't an issue. We lived going out in the woods. We woke up in the morning, took off, and left, and waited to hear your name being called, and to go home at night. I grew up in a small coal mining region that had already been long past coal mining in Pennsylvania, up in northeastern Pennsylvania. And, I just grew up, I think, like the last generation to be free. The last generation really to be able to enjoy the outdoors and spend time outside and just disappearing and friends and learning how to integrate with other people and other kids and getting in fights and learning conflict resolution. We didn't have helicopter parents. Parents didn't want to see us. You get out of the house, go do your thing, and come back when you're hungry. We would go to my friend's house and his mother would have lunch for us. My mother wouldn't see me. I would leave early in the morning and she would see me when it was dark and wondering where the hell I was, and that was it. So, I grew up in a really good time. I could push my motorcycle as a teenager out the garage door, literally go down the alleyway and then a half of a block, and I was in the woods and I was gone, and I had miles and miles and miles of trails and woods to go on a motorcycle at a really young age. And when I was 8 years old and I got my first motorcycle, we had, the alleyway wasn't paved back then, so I was ripping up and down with this little Benelli 60, a little 60cc Benelli mini bike, and that's what I cut my teeth on. But somewhere with the next generation, which would be my kids, things changed. As far as I'm concerned with my own children, it didn't change as much, but I was, the other parent. I had I had an ex-wife who was maybe a little bit more controlling, a little more concerned, but I was more like, you know what? Let them play, let them learn, let them do things, let them go outside. We don't have to be these helicopter parents. So I really think that has a lot to do with, how well you do in life and how well adjusted you are and how thick your skin is. We got in fights and the parents didn't come stick up for us. We got in fights, and if you got in trouble with another parent, didn't want them to tell your parents because you get a second beating when you came home. And I'm not promoting and saying that violence is the answer, but what I'm saying is a lot of the people in a generation, a lot of the kids in the generations after, and really the next couple of generations after ours, they just don't get it. And they didn't have really the same opportunity, and they currently don't really have the same opportunity because they're filled with computers and staying inside and not going, and the helicopter parenting and parents sticking up for kids and all of these things. It's just so wrong. Why can't we just learn to just let them go, And part of the issue that, the light, I've switched hands. So part of what I'm talking about here is that all of these bad things that you hear about in the news, they've always happened throughout time. They've always happened. But you know what? Me growing up, in the Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area up in northeastern Pennsylvania, We never heard about it when some kid in Tulsa, Oklahoma was, when he was kidnapped. We didn't hear that because it was just a whole other world away. The only thing that was on the national news was stuff that was national news, something that was important for the whole country. And now, as soon as cable TV came and all of these, the internet really changed things significantly, where now all of a sudden you're finding about things that happen in these little towns that you didn't even know existed. And it just heightened everyone to a point where they're like, oh my God, look what's going on in this world. No, man, this has always been going on in this world. It has always been going on in this world. We're just finding out about it. These are rare occurrences when you look at the total population. We just didn't know it was happening. And if something like that happened where you grew up, it was a big deal, but you knew it was, okay, it's isolated. That's not going to happen. They caught the guy or whatever the deal is, So just life has changed. And I don't know if this translates for other countries. I don't know if you guys over there in the UK and those that can understand my English in Italy and Spain and all these other places, or in South America, if you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing, because I'm looking back at my childhood and I'm going, man, I really had it made because of the freedom that was true freedom. I could just wake up in the morning and just disappear and come home, and we all learn lessons together. We learn how to integrate with other people. And I think that's why a lot of us do well. I think in some ways it works against you because we all become somewhat of workaholics and not always in balance with our lives. But ultimately, I didn't want to really talk motorcycles tonight, but this has been really gnawing at me for a while. And this is something that I just wanted to, talk about and go over a little bit, because I know there's a lot of people on this channel that are in and around my age group, in the 50s, maybe late 40s, that are Generation X. And, we're riding motorcycles now. We rode motorcycles then. Maybe some of us took a little gap in between, and so on and so forth. And maybe that's why we have a different attitude with everything. I don't know. So let us know. I mean, no matter what country you're from, if you're watching this, let us know exactly what kind of childhood, like what kind of freedoms did you have and when do you think this helicopter parenting started, and how I think that we're more well-adjusted than the kids of today. And we see that in the workplace, because a lot of the younger generation, the skin is thin and you have to be too careful what you say all the time. And I'm not saying being mean to people, but come on. Things have got to change a little bit. So let's talk about your childhood and comment below on what your thoughts are on this. All right, this is Rainbow. Please like, please subscribe. It's got nothing to do with motorcycles, but in a way, it has everything to do with motorcycles. See you on the flip side.